Brian, how you doing?
I'm great, doing great, thank you.
Great to see you again. Yes. What a wonderful event we had today, and having you in Dubai is always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Great. Brian, as you know, I run an academy for sales where I train company sales representatives to go out there and make it happen, sell more. Of course, I also work with their leadership teams to ensure that they are driving the business results. And there are a few questions that would like to get your, let's say, your take on them. In terms of today, competition is fierce. Everybody wants to come to this part of the world, the Middle East, and when Europe and North America aren't growing, let's just send it to here and let's see how we can make more sales. So competition is increasing. What I'll ask you is, what would be some tips or ideas that you feel that you can let people know in terms of helping them to differentiate? How can they maintain their margins? How can they try to avoid falling into the commoditization trap, moving in the years ahead as it becomes even more competitive?
Well, the first part of differentiation is to decide where your product or service is superior to that of your competitors. And it has to be superior in a meaningful way, and so that customers will buy your product. And most people, 80% of businesses, according to recent surveys, do not know why customers buy their product rather than some other product. They think it may be many reasons, but they're not really sure the correct reason. So the starting point is, why is my product or service better? Because, as they say, if you do not have competitive advantage, you should not compete. And sometimes your competitive advantage could be the quality of the product. It tastes better, which is usually the very best competitive advantage. It could be the pricing structure. It could be the ingredients. But when you're selling products through third-party salespeople, like food products, for example, the advantage that you can develop is the speed of delivery and the accuracy of accounting, so that people can always depend upon you to be sure that you have the right number of the right selling products on the shelves at the right time. The best example of this is Walmart. Walmart has the most sophisticated distribution system in the world. They use satellites so that they never have a single instance where a store is out of a stock. If there is a 42 centimeter blue long-sleeved business shirt that is sold in this store anywhere in the world, each time that is sold, it goes to the satellite, which goes to the factory, which produces a new one, which is then distributed, so that it all arrives so that they never have overstocks or understocks. As a result, Walmart can charge low prices and pass the savings on to their customers because of their distribution skill. So that's an area where you can differentiate, where you have a much better distribution. There's nothing that makes the ultimate seller of your product angrier than to have a customer and have no stock. So if your product cannot be differentiated because it is not substantially different from your competition, then you can differentiate it on the way that you price, the way that you deliver, the way that you account, the way you make it easy for your customer to acquire your product and sell it.
You know, the thing that comes up now, okay, we as suppliers, as distribution companies, as sellers, we go put in these systems. And especially in a B2B context, selling to other businesses, there is the buying function. And as much as one of the decision makers who the sales rep might be interacting with, or the account manager, it goes back to the buying function and trying to kind of devalue, or they try to kind of erase all differentiation and make your product look like everything else. So, and especially this part of the world, people like to negotiate and like to haggle. Any tips on how to avoid that trap, and how to possibly, if someone engages with you with such tactics, how to overcome them?
Well, this is common all over the world. Psychologically, people have a great fear of paying more than is necessary. It's not the price, it's the thought that they could get it at a lower price if they ask or if they negotiate. So they have to realize that this price is fixed, that it's inflexible. For example, I have a Rolex watch. When I went to buy this watch, I found that Rolex has price uniformity worldwide. if I buy this watch in any country, China, US, Dubai, Switzerland, it's exactly the same price. You cannot get it cheaper somewhere else. So if you want a Rolex watch, that is the price you pay. There's no discounts. And it's the same thing. If you have your price schedule, the prices should be fixed. The only deviation is if the customer buys more. So that's how you negotiate. You say, this is the price, but if you buy a larger quantity or commit for a larger quantity, which saves us time and money in production and distribution, then we will pass on the savings to you. You see, if I say to you, my product costs 100 dinar, is it dinar?
Dirhams.
Dirham, 100 dirham. And you say, well, can I get it lower? Can I get a lower price? And you say, well, maybe we could go down to 90 dirham. Well, then what you're saying is the first price I was trying to cheat you. Yes, so I'm basically here to cheat you as much as possible. And then they say, well, what if I buy, what do your other customers pay? Well, you know, some of our other customers only pay 80 dirham. So it's a double cheat. So now I can't trust you because I'm afraid that whatever price I pay you, I could have gotten it for a lower price if I was just adamant. So therefore, I'm not going to make a decision today. I have to think about it. When I bought my first computer from IBM, I actually wanted to buy 2 or 3 computers for my business, PCs. So I asked them, how much is a computer? And they said, $3,500. I said, what if I buy 2? He said, well, it's very simple. You multiply 2 times 3,500. And what if I buy 10? Well, then you just multiply 10. And is there any discount? No. Well, what are the terms? Cash. But what about financing? We are not a bank. So if you want to finance the purchase of the computers, you must go to your own bank and borrow the money. We sell for a fixed price for cash in advance, and then you get the product. And so everyone in the world knew that IBM prices were fixed and not flexible, and you had to pay 100% in advance to get an IBM product. And that was the end of it. Everybody in the world knew that everyone else in the world was paying exactly the same price on the same terms and conditions. It's only when your prices are different for different people that you're always negotiating and you're always losing the deal. Because if I think that I'm paying too much, I will just delay. I'll say, well, let me think about it, or write me a proposal, or give me some information. So be clear about your prices, but be willing to reduce the price for volume purchases.
Gotcha. Great point. You know, having worked with lots of organizations, whether sales leaders managing multitudes of sales representatives,
Yes.
the number one thing that everyone is after is more sales.
Yes.
And in some occasions, it's at the expense of learning how to get more sales. So it's going out there doing the same old, and expecting a different result. And I understand in many distribution organizations, serving the customers, answering the phone, submitting a proposal, and ensuring ordering stocks, etc., is key activities. Yeah. So, any tips for representatives working within organizations where they might be a bit overworked, in terms of how can they take their head up and sharpen the saw in order to really get better results?
Well, one of the reasons why they're overworked is because they waste so much time in non-work activities. As we talked about in our seminars, they spend a lot of time talking to their coworkers, and they spend time playing games on the computer and going on to Facebook and reading the newspaper and so on. So basically what we teach is to make a list of everything you need to do each day, and then follow your list every day. And when you work all the time you work. Don't waste time. Just keep moving steadily through your work. And you'll be amazed at how much you get your time under control and how much you accomplish in a day. In every organization where there's several people working internally, there's always one who is the most productive. This person produces more than anybody else because they're working all the time. And the others are talking or doing something else. So it comes back to setting priorities, working all the time you work, working on your most important tasks and completing each of those tasks as you go along.
You know, the next thought that's coming to mind is, you know, this is great. And many times sales professionals know they need to do that. How do we bridge the gap, Brian, going from, you know, I know how to do this, but then I get caught up. How do we, any tips or ideas that you say, going from knowing what to do to doing what I know and developing a new culture, developing new habits, just like any other habit, sales habits can be formed?
Human beings are motivated by either rewards or punishment, yes, by incentives. I worked with a company that was in serious financial trouble, and then they brought in a new president, and the president turned the company around from $1 billion in losses to $1 billion in profits in 1 year. And then they had a big celebration for the company, and I was invited to be the speaker. So I sat next to the president, and I asked him, how did you bring about such a big change? Because it had been in all the newspapers, magazines. This man was considered to be one of the genius executives because he had turned this business around. He said, well, it was very simple. He said, I came in and we had low sales. Our sales were too low. And the company had like 32 branches in the state of California, business services. And so I asked, why are our sales too low? Our salespeople are not making enough sales. So he investigated, and he found that the average salesperson was making 2 new customer calls per week. Even though the company generated leads, it had a big reputation, it had a large base of previous customers, they were only making 2 calls a week. So he said, what is this? He said, well, because there's no requirements. There's no standards. So people come to the office and they spend most of their time in the office, and maybe twice a week on average. So he called his vice president of marketing and sales, and he said, effective next month, first of the month, I want every salesperson making 2 calls per day with their sales report at the end of the day. Who they called on, what they spoke about, what is the likelihood of a sale. And so he called all the managers, sales managers, and the president said, and if they are not making 2 calls each by the end of the month, you will be fired, and I'll replace you with someone else, like a general in the middle of an army, of a battle. So he called the sales managers and he said, I want every one of your salespeople making 2 calls every day or you'll be fired. And so they all called their salespeople together and said, we've just got instructions from headquarters. Every person here will be making a minimum of 2 calls per day on new customers or they'll be fired. And the company turned around. And you had to do a report, and the sales manager had to make a report and send it up. And everybody was motivated because other than that, they would be fired. And they had very good base salaries and so on. So it's the same sort of thing. Why aren't people active enough? Is they don't have standards. And the sales manager does not impose measures and deadlines for every activity. I knew one company that transformed by saying, from now on, you will make 10 calls. 10 calls on new customers per day, and you will speak to 10 prospective customers, and you'll put in a report every day. I took over a company once, and I used this method, and I said every salesman will be making 5 calls every day, effective tomorrow. If you don't make 5 calls each day with reports, then you will be fired. And I had something like 25 salespeople. Within 1 week, 10 had left. They just quit because they weren't willing to work. The other 15 transformed the business. It became one of the most successful businesses in the industry. People said, well, you must be a miracle worker. No, you just have very set, clear standards, and you enforce the standards.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Brian. I know that I've attended many of your seminars and highly recommend individuals to keep learning from the wealth of knowledge and experiences that you bring to the table. And actually, in May 24th, 2016, Brian is going to spend a whole day in the Dubai region, well, in Dubai, going over some steps of business transformation, helping you grow your businesses, new strategies to help you enhance your business model to take it to the new millennium, making things happen.
It's a basic course on how to increase your sales and profitability in any market against your competition. And if you don't have these techniques and your competition knows these techniques, they will win and you will lose.
Great, great. So look forward to seeing you at an upcoming Brian Tracy event, and see you soon.